Rookie running back flyer is flying under the dynasty radar right now. Which projected second-round receiver might outperform both Williams and Davis? And what are the chances Joe Mixon has the best season of the rookie rushers? Plus, the FFPC 1250 number 13 dynasty champs Nick Stacey and Erik Osteen co-host the show with me tonight to discuss the tight end crop for rookie drafts, the Bears' number one receiver, and buying Martavis Bryant. We've got a great show for you. Erik Osteen and Nick Stacey are here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your Eric Balkman Show episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hours. And salutations, all you Balkaholics and Gerzakin addicts. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. I'm your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman. My normal co-host is the patron saint of fantasy football. Of course, he is the Dizzle, Dave Gerzak. But since he is off again this week, we have two fantastic co-hosts. They joined the FFPC last year with one league, the 1250 number 13 Dynasty. Fast forward now, they will be defending their title in 2017 in that league this coming year. Please welcome tonight's co-hosts, Nick Stacey and Erik Osteen. Gentlemen, welcome aboard, and thank you so much for hanging out on a special Thursday night show with me. Very much obliged to have you. Welcome to the show, guys.
Appreciate it. Bye.
So excited to have a couple of Dynasty champs on the show once again. We are going to be talking a lot of Dynasty. We'll get into some redraft stuff as well. Coming up on tonight's show, can Kyle Rudolph duplicate his 2016 season? Is now the time to sell Eric Decker? And much, much more. Shout out to the chat room right now. Feel free to post any questions you all might have in there. If you want to connect with us on Twitter, you can do so with the show at HSFF Hour. You can do so with me at Eric Balkman. You can post on our Facebook page at facebook.com/HSFF Hour. If you want to chime in and talk with us tonight, give us a call at 347-426-3682. That's 347-GAME-OVA. You can also email the show at the inbox, highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. If you have any questions for us, for Nick, for me, for Eric, for anyone, really, for Dave, and we'll get to him next week, send them in now. Our producer and mutual friend Rob and our audio engineer Bryce will get those questions to us later on in the fantasy feedback section of the show. But before we go any further, I do want to remind everybody a couple of things about the FFPC. Remember, our live events will be taking place once again in Las Vegas at Planet Hollywood this year. The main event is open for registrations. A $250,000 grand prize, a $1.7 million prize pool. Take advantage of that early bird, too. You can get in on that by May 31st. Save $100 on your first team. That is the lowest price we'll have on any team, if it's your first team this season. If you get additional ones after that, they are $200 off. The 2017 Football Guys Players Championship will, of course, kick off June 4th. Also, a $2 million prize pool and a $250,000 grand prize. But if you want to satisfy that drafting Jones now, we have satellites open, draft experts and super flexes starting at $35 on up. Our dynasty startups and rookie drafts kick off on May 13th. There is still time to jump in with either an orphan team. You can get a good deal at that at myffpc.com. You can check out the dynasty startups. We have $77 on up to $2,500 are those startups. Those are taking place on May 13th. You can sign up right now for them. And a new high-stakes lowdown at rotoviz.com featuring me, Andy Shaw, and Nelson Sousa. That is all coming up this coming Thursday. But before we get to Thursday, we have to enjoy this Thursday, and that's with Nick, Stacey, and Erik Osteen, the 1250 number 13 Dynasty champs in 2016. Excited to have you guys come on tonight. I want to pick your brain for fantasy football, but before we get into that, Nick, when you're not enjoying winning Dynasty leagues with the FFPC, what are you doing for a living?
I'm a courier.
Courier, and then Erik, what about you? What are you doing for a living?
I work at Iron Mountain, which is like a facility that stores financial records, medical records, stuff like that.
Very interesting, Steve. You guys both come from different walks of life. Nick, I'll pose this to you. How did you guys come to co-own this Dynasty team together? Had you co-owned teams before, or how did this come about?
Known this kid since '94. Been tight with him ever since. Both love sports. Always loved to compete against each other. I finally said, hey, let's just team up and stop fighting each other.
So you guys had competed against each other in leagues, going back, 20 plus years. Who usually got the better of who? Was it Nick usually coming on top of Erik, or other way around?
Actually, I was the one who always beat up on Nick, which is a good feeling, but finally we just had to join forces, trying to earn some money and do some damage.
Yeah, and you guys certainly did a lot of damage. I mean, there's not too many people that come into any league in the FFPC, be it Dynasty, the main event, the Football Guys Players Championship. You get one league the first year you co-own a team together, and now you're champs. I mean, you're in the unique position of being 1-0 in the FFPC. Congrats on that title. Nick, what were your expectations coming into this year one of this league, co-owning a team not only for the first time with Erik, but just never playing this format before, never getting involved in high stakes Dynasty? What were your expectations coming into the year?
Well, I'm a big Herm Edwards fan. You play the game to win. So, we've been doing this for 20 plus years. Spent a lot of time following the game. So, we play to win. We expected to be very competitive. Obviously, you got to have a little luck on your side to win it all. But we always expect to be very competitive with, giving ourselves a chance to grab a title.
I think, too, just getting to the playoffs in the FFPC Dynasty format is so important, because you get 6 teams in there. The top 2 teams will get byes, and then it's kind of up to how you finish off the season, and whichever team is playing best. Maybe that's where the luck factor comes into it. But you guys, finished it out strong, and I'm sure there's a skill point of that in setting your lineup the right way, getting the players that are going to perform best the last few weeks of the season. You guys definitely did that. Led by a trio of rookies, which I think is so crucial. Especially when it comes to Dynasty, much more so in redraft. But Ezekiel Elliott, Jordan Howard, Michael Thomas, all on your team. So the future is bright, Nick. Given your success in this first year, have you guys been tempted to move any draft picks, maybe to get some more proven veterans to be a heavy contender for the next 2 or 3 years? Or are you content with, we got these 3 rookies, we got the core, let's see if we can add pieces year by year and see how many years we can win this thing?
Well, first, let me give a quick shout-out to our third team owner, Andy Burbank. He's the wild card of our team. He'll throw some wild ideas and thoughts at us, make you look at things at a different angle. Also a financial supporter. So we got to make sure we give a quick shout-out to him. But, Zeke Elliott was Erik's pick. He followed him closely at Ohio State. Obviously, Dallas, great offensive line. That was his call. Zeke had a great year. We got Michael Thomas probably in the middle of the draft. Same with Jordan Howard. That just comes from Erik and Andy. They're both big college guys. They follow the game. So, but we believe in building through the draft. We like the balance of the roster. We got some young guys, like we just talked about. We got some veterans that are producing for us right now. So we like our balance. So we don't feel a strong urge to, trade away high draft picks right now to better our roster, because I feel like we're in position to contend again. We're open to it, we're going to see how the draft lays out, where guys land and how it looks. But we're pretty content right now, we're pretty happy with our team. So we're not looking to mortgage the future anytime soon.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would want to be in your position, having Elliott, having Howard, having Thomas, to sort of have those guys for the next, anything can happen, guys change teams, there's injuries or whatever, but to have those guys as your core going forward, I think that you are definitely in a very envious position. Looking at receiver on this team, in addition to you already touched on Michael Thomas, but you got Jordy Nelson, Brandon Marshall, Julian Edelman, who were all key cogs this past year, maybe not so much Marshall, but, going forward, you'll be counting on these guys. And I think, as much as you can love any one of these guys, you can look and see some potential drawbacks to them for the 2017 season. Jordy Nelson, obviously coming off a banner year, coming off the ACL, but he's another year older. Brandon Marshall is the number 2 on the Giants instead of the number 1 on the Jets. And Julian Edelman is going to be facing some competition for targets with the newly acquired Brandon Cooks in New England. So as you look at those 3 guys, who are you most concerned with coming into 2017, Nick, for this upcoming year? Which one of those 3 are you most concerned with?
Well, I don't think we're concerned with anyone or worried with anyone. Jordy Nelson, what a year he had. 97 grabs, almost 1,300 yards, 14 touchdowns, another Erik selection. We kind of took our turns. There was 3 of us. Whoever's trying to win that round had the final say on the pick. We obviously talked about it, but there's no concern with Jordy Nelson. He's a stud. Had a much better year than anyone expected.
Yep.
Now he's 2 years removed from the ACL. So, I'm a basketball guy, and I appreciate you working around the NCAA tournament for us.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you. I appreciate it, too.
Of course.
The
forefront of my mind.
In the basketball community, the further you get removed from ACL, the better you're going to be. So we're excited for Jordy Nelson this year. Brandon Marshall, going to my Giants. Eli drives me nuts, but Fitzpatrick actually killed the Jets last year. He's a nightmare. Marshall's a red zone target. He's got Eli can get the ball. He can move the Giants up and down the field. He's a 2. OBJ is going to draw all the attention. Brandon Marshall could have a nice year this year, so we're excited about that because we got nothing out of Marshall last year, and he was our 4th pick. So getting nothing out of your 4th pick and winning the title, now we're going to get something out of him. We feel pretty good about the next 2 years with him. Edelman's tough as nails. I don't know why the Patriots traded for Cooks. Didn't seem like a need. Maybe he's going to be a replacement for Edelman in a couple of years. Thomas Brady, he spreads it around. He works the matchups. He works, situation. So we're not worried about Edelman. He'll be solid. Gronk always gets hurt, which will give you more targets. So we're not really worried about anyone, but we are curious about what the Edelman situation is going to look like as the season progresses.
Yeah, I think that's going to be one of the more compelling storylines. I mentioned this on the show the last few weeks, really. We're all going to be paying attention to the preseason, seeing how the whole Edelman versus Cooks thing plays out. Hey, Nick, let me get back to Brandon Marshall, since you are a Giants fan. Brandon Marshall, to you, is he the number 2 receiver in this offense, or is it Shepard? Who has the better season between those 2? Is it Marshall because of the red zone factor?
Definitely Marshall because of the red zone factor. Marshall's a stud. I think he's a Hall of Famer. He's a pro. He's just trying to win right now. And he's going to be a great influence in OBJ. Because look at Brandon Marshall when he's younger, all the problems he had. He's worked through them. He's improved himself. He's in a good place in his life. I'm excited because he's going to help OBJ. Because OBJ is crazy right now, and he needs a mature person, guidance like Brandon Marshall. I think it's a beautiful situation for all of them. Eli's going to throw the ball in the dirt a lot, but he's also going to throw it over Brandon Marshall's head by 10 feet. But, he's still a decent quarterback in the league, and we're excited. Brandon Marshall in the red zone with a decent quarterback. I think the kid can still play, so we're excited.
Yeah, it's only going to be good news for OBJ, too, a guy who many consider to be a head case now. Remember, a lot of people thought Brandon Marshall kind of was a head case coming up in his first few years in the NFL, and he put that behind him. It's sort of consummate pro now, so definitely a calming influence on OBJ. Only good things as far as that's concerned. Erik, let me piggyback on something Nick said there about how you guys handled your Dynasty startup draft, where you sort of, was it just a rotation of a pick by pick, between the rounds? Like first, Nick had one, then you had one, then Andy had one, and then, you had one, and Nick had one, and then Andy had one. How did that shake out when you guys are making the selections?
I mean, that's exactly what we did the whole time. And, we had that feel. If there was someone there that I felt really strong about, we would discuss it real quick. But for the most part, there wasn't really too much arguing. Really more towards the end of the draft, we were kind of questioning each other a little bit. But, that's just how we did it. We just rotated, and we just made pick by pick, and, yeah.
It's interesting. How did you guys get a lot of trade offers during the draft for picks to move up or move down? How did you guys, is that sort of like, you get the offer and you either, 2 out of 3 guys decide if you're going to take it or not, or if you're going to counter? How did you handle those, Erik, if you got any trade offers for picks?
Well, this was our very first time ever doing a dynasty draft, and there was this one team, Franchise 8. Shout out to Franchise 8. This guy was trying to work the newbies so bad. It was every round he's offering us all these trades, and sometimes we're like, this dude is crazy. He is offering us this and that, but we just held our ground. We just wanted the draft to come to us, and we just kind of took that method of drafting where we didn't get too excited about what was going on and took it for what it was, and we got fortunate enough to get the team that we have right now.
Nick, Stacey, and Erik Osteen, the 1250 Dynasty number 13 champs from last year, with the FFPC co-hosting tonight on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Nick, back to you. I want to talk about Kyle Rudolph here because he had a career year last year. This was he was the player last year that a lot of people thought he would be, maybe not his rookie year, but his second year in and year out. Just crushed it last year. Is he likely to continue that success in 2017? Has anything changed that would make you think that he is not going to be that player once again this year? Have you tried listing him on any potential trade offers to other owners in this league? Maybe want to try to sell high on him, gauge his worth. How have you guys been treating Kyle Rudolph, and what do you foresee for him this coming season?
We're not giving him enough respect. You open our eyes, or my eyes, because Erik will tell you, I'm not a stats guy. We got the Sunday ticket. We watch all the games. I'm an eye test guy, and I read all the box scores on Monday, so I know what's going on. But I had no idea. After I got your rundown for tonight, I went and looked at the stats. I'm like, Jesus, he had Kyle Rudolph. Where'd he go on me? Kyle Rudolph. I got some notes here, and he disappeared on me.
It's interesting
right.
that he crushed it all season for you, Nick, and you sort of didn't even realize it. Just putting up points week in and week out. It was a real consistent, steady approach that Rudolph gave fantasy owners.
Right. He had some good games, and then he had some quiet games. Sam Bradford just seemed to go to him. I don't know if it was new system. The offensive line was terrible, so you got to get the ball out quick, which I think played to Rudolph having a lot of. He had 83 grabs. 83 grabs from Kyle Rudolph. Who expects that? Who knows that? 840 yards is solid. 7 touchdowns. You'll take that all day from you. We got this cat late, 3/4 way through the draft, Kyle Rudolph. Our boy, our third owner, Andy Burbank, he's a Vikings fan. That was kind of him. He's like, let's get Rudolph. You're right. He hit quietly. He had a great season. Stayed healthy. I'm hoping Sam Bradford is going to be the quarterback going into this season, because obviously he had a rapport with Rudolph, and he's a red zone target. We watched some games on Sundays where, he just came up inches short of grabbing. He could have had 10+ touchdowns this past season easily. So, No, we're excited about Rudolph. He's 28, and he's in his prime. We get him late in the draft. And if you don't have Gronk and maybe, I don't know, Travis Kelce, Olsen and Jimmy Graham, they're on the older end. I mean, we're content. We got Rudolph. He had a very good season, but he's holding his own every week. You know what I mean? So we're in a good spot there.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that, we're getting a good feel for what kind of spot you guys are in overall with the three rookies, with Elliott, Howard, and Thomas. Marshall, Nelson, Edelman, Kyle Rudolph all had big impacts on how you guys were able to win this league the first year, and how you're in a good spot to win it going forward. And part of that is going to be the rookie class that is coming in. We're going to take a break, and we're going to talk about that rookie class, find out your opinions on some of these guys that will be drafted high in FFPC rookie drafts coming up in about a month and a half. You're listening to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Erik Balkman, Nick Stacey, Erik Osteen coming back at you on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network right after this. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour rolls on here on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. I am Erik Balkman. Dave Gerzak is off this week, but we are on with Nick Stacey and Erik Osteen. They, the champs of the 1250 FFPC Dynasty number 13 draft league this past year. Awesome to have you guys on. And Erik, I want to start, getting your opinions on some of these rookies that are coming into the league this year. And then it's exciting. It's really an exciting trio of running backs right up the top. We've had the last couple of years, it seems like it's been two running backs or one running back right up at the top, obviously with Elliott last year. And then, you look at the year before, it was Melvin Gordon, Todd Gurley. But we have three guys that could go in the first round of the NFL draft. It seems to be in no particular order: Dalvin Cook, Leonard Fournette, and Christian McCaffrey. I guess they would be in alphabetical order. Cook, Fournette, and McCaffrey is how they're listed here. Who gets you most excited for, not knowing where these guys are going to end up? Who gets you most excited right now out of those three?
I would have to say Leonard Fournette. Last year in college, he was banged up. But if anyone watched this kid play his sophomore year, you just know he has that explosion. He has that wiggle. He has that spin move. He'll run you over. This kid is really, really good. And I think from a lot of mock drafts I'm reading, like I'm seeing Carolina, if he ended up with the Panthers, that would be crazy after the bad season that franchise had. But I would definitely say Fournette. I mean, the only weakness Fournette has really is he's just not a good pass catcher out of the backfield. But besides that, he's kind of like Adrian Peterson, so I'm really excited to watch this kid play. And we probably have no chance to draft him, which kind of stinks, but I am really excited to watch this kid play.
Yeah, he should be a very compelling guy to watch in his rookie year. And I'm almost wondering about the pass-catching thing, because I kind of agree with you that it's not a strength of his, but I'm almost wondering, how many chances did he get to really show off how good of a pass catcher he could be at LSU? I'm almost wondering, because the stuff I've heard about and read about him, he's doing these workouts and all the drills of the combine. He didn't look bad catching the ball. I'm wondering if this was sort of just an untapped, aspect of his game, an untapped talent that maybe he had, and maybe Carolina's, if whoever drafts him, be it the Panthers or whoever, is just going to throw him into the fire and just start throwing him balls out of the backfield. Maybe he can catch 25, 30 balls his first year. I'm almost wondering, he just hasn't had the opportunity to really get exposed to that aspect of playing running back in the NFL.
No, and I agree, because I've watched a lot of his games the last 3 years, and LSU's offense is just pound the ball. It's power eye. You just run. So they didn't really pass it to him much. I just know a few times that I saw a couple screens. He didn't look too good, but that was just a few times that I saw it. So that doesn't necessarily mean, like you said, he didn't really have a lot of opportunities to actually catch the ball. He could be a dynamite pass catcher. We don't even really know this yet. But I would just say that's my knock that I have on him from what I've seen the last couple of years.
Erik, you guys are the champ, you and Nick. You're at the 112 this year, the final pick of the first round. Have you had any thoughts about moving up or moving down this early in the process, or are you more of the opinion look, let's see where these guys end up on the NFL in the NFL draft, and then kind of see how we want to treat this. And who are you hoping, right now makes it to you if you stand pat at the end of the first round, a guy that you wouldn't mind picking at that spot?
Well, we are definitely very content on staying where we are right now. I mean, obviously, if a good offer comes up, we'll discuss it and we'll figure it out. But, I mean, we're cool with where we are right now. And there is a lot of activity right now in our league. Like, these guys are just trading so many picks back and forth. So, like, it's a little crazy to me because we don't even know where these guys are going yet. I would rather wait until the draft happens and then kind of start wheeling and dealing a little bit. So we're cool right now where we are, but we would definitely, take offers if that's the situation. And I do have a feeling we're not going to get a top running back or a top wide receiver, but there are some tight ends out there that we really do like, and it'd be cool if we could get one of those top 3 tight ends. And yeah, that'd be ideal situation if we could land like a stud tight end in that first round.
We were kind of talking about this, I don't know when it was. It was probably 3 or 4 weeks ago. And maybe it was even longer than that, but we were talking about, because this is an historic tight end class that is coming into the NFL this year. You have so many good options at the top end. And we were talking about, given the tight end premium scoring of the FFPC, how many tight ends would go in the first round of a rookie draft. Normally you maybe see 1, in rare chance. Maybe there'd be 2, but this year, maybe you see 3. Maybe you see that third tight end go off the board at the 112, so you guys would have the opportunity to take him there. I think that's going to be compelling. And obviously, so much, and I say this, week in and week out, it depends where these guys go. I mean, talent matters a lot, and maybe talent matters the most, but situation does factor into it as well. Nick, back to you with all the trades that have been going on in the 1250 and number 13 right now. With all the trade offers that have been bandied back and forth, are there any veterans maybe that you'd be looking at acquiring right now on the cheap, a guy who maybe didn't have the greatest 2016 that you think, maybe it's worth sending an offer this guy's way to see if he'd be willing to part with him for less than full value, given that he didn't play up to his full potential last year? Have there been any guys like that for you so far this offseason, Nick? We may have lost. Did we lose Nick? Nick, are you there? Erik, are you there? Do we lose? I could hear people. Nick or Erik, are you there?
Yes.
Is this Erik?
This is Erik.
That's what I thought. Okay, we may have temporarily lost Nick. Erik,
okay.
You can answer that. You can answer that question. How has maybe buying low on a veteran that had a down year last year? Have you tossed out any offers for those guys? Have you looked at potentially maybe acquiring a guy on the cheap?
We haven't tossed out any offers out there, but like Nick was trying to say, and I don't know why he got cut off, but he is kind of interested in AJ Green. That is someone that we're potentially interested in. We just don't know. He's been a little injured-riddled the last couple seasons. So maybe we could try to wheel and deal, but, I mean, these guys are pretty stingy in this league. They really want a lot for these players. So that's why, we're not so crazy with giving up so many picks right away for certain players.
I think I got Nick back now. Nick, talk a little bit about A.J. Green. He obviously underperformed a little bit last year, but this is a guy who, he's not the youngest guy in the world, but he's still got, a lot of good production to give in Dynasty Fantasy Football, right?
Yeah, I feel that way. I think he's got a couple good years left. He seems to be, I don't know, maybe it's just a gut feeling. I feel like he's starting to get dinged up a little bit. He's a long body, and sometimes those long body guys, the feet, the ankles, start to bother him, catch up with him. But when owners got AJ Green, and like Erik was saying, we have, that's a guy we're looking at, but it's going to take more than what we're willing to give up. Because going back to earlier, we have a nice balanced roster. We don't feel the pressure to have to make a big move. We just won the title. the core of our team is young. We got some solid veterans, and maybe we're wrong because we're first-year dynasty players, but we feel like in order to stay competitive year in, year out, draft well. Do your work and draft well in the first 2 or 3 rounds to continue to build your roster and stay competitive.
I agree with you on AJ Green. Obviously coming off a down year last year, I think that it's only natural for him to regress to the mean and have a better 2017 season. And the other thing that I think is a little bit underrated when you talk about AJ Green and the Bengals this year, they kind of got hit hard in free agency. They lost some key pieces on their offensive line. They might be a prime candidate as a team that takes it a step back this year. And usually when a team takes a step back, it means they're not running the ball as much. It means they're playing from behind a little bit more. And I think that, you look at Tyler Eifert, a guy who's been hurt quite a bit. Tyler Boyd, that, he was a rookie last year, but he didn't really seem to put it all together. I think AJ Green could be just a target monster again this year. And if you want to get him in Dynasty, I think now's the time to do it. And Erik, I'll let you touch on this. I think now's the time to do it because I think if you try to trade for AJ Green after 2017, you're going to be paying even more than what you'd be paying for him right now.
Yeah, and you could totally be onto something. I mean, he's been dinged up the last couple of years, and like you said, the Bengals have been depleted in this offseason, both on defense and offense. They are going to be passing a lot. I mean, I totally agree with you. If that's a move that we can make and we feel comfortable making at the time, then, we would like to make that move. But, totally right. 2017, the asking price will probably be very high after that season.
Nick, it's difficult for me to ask, well, what went wrong this past year? Because you guys ended up winning the league. It's tough to say like, oh, let's talk about all the mistakes you made because the decisions you guys made that ended up working out because it all led to a championship title. But if I were to ask you anything that you maybe wished you would have done differently, maybe you would have made a different decision on a player or a lineup decision or a waiver wire or a trade or anything like that. What's one thing that you wish you would have done a little bit better last year that you're hoping to improve upon and get better this second year of your FFPC Dynasty ownership?
Well, we kind of been chuckling about it, and we haven't really celebrated to my liking yet. Maybe after I share this shit, but we were just damn lucky. The health of our fantasy football, a big part of it is healthy your roster, and like literally, I don't think I've ever had a healthier roster. Erik Ebron missed some games to some injuries, kind of upset us. We feel like he's on our roster. We love him. He's young. He's got a lot of potential, specimen. But, man, we're starting to wonder if he's soft. But other than that, we were just blessed. I don't know, man. We, like I said, we really talked it up and communicated well with 3 owners. We really put a lot of time in watching, reading, studying. We put too much time into this, okay? So our wives and girlfriends get upset. They're like, you're still reading? You're still on, such and such site? Reading up on stuff. I'm Eric's like, can't believe I'm a courier, so I drive around all day. I'm delivering in the city, and I'm listening to the podcast, your podcast, other podcasts, and I'm always looking for an edge. And I just think everything was in line for us. It was a beautiful thing. Like I said, we've never teamed up before. We've always just gone at each other, real super competitive, and it was just the stars aligned for us. I don't think there's anything we could have done different, anything we regretted. It just lined up. We're of the nature, let the draft come to you, let the season come to you. We have a good feel for the game and just use our instincts. So.
Let's get to a couple of emails, right? We'll do some more emails later on in the show, but I want to get to a couple right now. This is from Mike in Loves Park, Illinois. Nick, I will toss this to you. Yeah, let's do. Nick can answer this one. After seeing Gronk's injury history get longer and longer, would either of you guys be trying to deal him for slightly less than market value right now? Congrats on the FFPC title. That's Mike in Loves Park, Illinois. Thank you for the email, Mike. I guess you both can answer it. We'll have Nick do it first. And Erik, feel free to agree or disagree with what Nick says. But is Gronk the type of guy, if you did own him in a dynasty league, that maybe you'd be looking to get some value for him right now, given that he has not exactly been the pinnacle of health the last few years in the NFL?
Scares the BGs out of me. We love Gronk because we're based out of New England, so we love Gronk. Coincidentally, an owner in our league had Gronk. That was probably the best player on his roster. Gronk and J.J. were the best players on his roster. I think this league owner bailed. He didn't have a good season. Someone bought his roster. Someone put Gronk on the block. But because of Gronk's injury history, we offered him 2 fours. Maybe that's crazy, but we're looking at his conversation starter. We have a good roster. We're balanced. We feel good. We don't need to mortgage the future to get him. But in our league, someone ended up giving up a 1.6 and a 1.10 for Gronk. Then they got him. Took 2 first-rounders to get Gronk. I mean, that was way beyond what we were willing to do. Like I said, we offered 2 fours. We might have gone, that was a conversation that we might have gone to the offer like a 3rd-rounder or 2. But that was as far as we were willing to go because Gronk's a stud, but the cat can't stay healthy, so.
Well, and Erik, I'll let you chime in on that, but it sounds, you guys obviously don't own Gronk in this league, but it sounds like you're willing to take Gronk onto your team, but only at the price that works for you.
No, exactly. I mean, you have Gronk. It's one of those things where if you have him and he's healthy, he's going to give you one of the best tight end seasons you're ever going to see, and you want that. But, man, he's at the point where you don't even know if the Patriots will cut him after this season if he gets one more significant injury. And we were thinking about it. I mean, if I was the owner and I had Gronk, I would be trying to wheel and deal him too, just like that guy did in our league. But, I mean, definitely I wouldn't mind having Gronk. I just wasn't willing to give up 2 first-rounders for him. But, I mean, I would definitely love to have him on my roster. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, 2 first-rounders, definitely a steep price to pay when you consider all the time he spent on the shelf lately. It's not like Gronk is 38 years old, but he's got a lot of tread on those tires too. So interesting. Okay, so 2 first-rounders it took to get Gronk in the 12-50-13. Erik, I'll let you answer this email next. This is from Mark in Reeder. I believe it's Reeder, West Virginia. He writes, if the Jets do not draft Fournette this season, can we expect a repeat of what we saw in the New York backfield last year with Forte and Powell? That is Mark in Reeder, West Virginia. Thank you so much for listening and writing in, Mark. Erik, your thoughts on the Jets running back situation? If they don't draft Fournette, let's just frame this. If they don't draft a running back maybe in the first 3 rounds, maybe they just get a sort of a depth guy on day 3 of the NFL draft. Are you expecting more of the same of what we saw between Matt Forte and Bilal Powell in 2017?
I mean, it'll probably be pretty much the same type of situation. They'll probably go Forte early, and then they'll probably just go Powell like at the end of the year like they did this season. Forte, unfortunately, he was a great running back, but he's a little long in the tooth, and Powell's not really a fantasy 1. I really don't even think he's a fantasy 2 running back, but he's that guy that sometimes you can pick up at the tail end of the season, and the Jets are losing, they put him out there, and he gets touches, so you can kind of play him. But in a dynasty league, I wouldn't touch either of those 2 guys.
Nick, just framing this sort of in a single season approach to Powell and Forte, even if things stay the same, even if they don't add a difference-making back in rounds 1 through 3 of the NFL draft, are either Forte or Powell a guy that you want to make sure you get on your team this year? Because I don't know how much fantasy value they gave their owners last year. I know Powell had the couple of good weeks toward the end of the season, and Forte had the couple of good weeks to start the season, but there was a whole lot of nothing in between.
Well, the Jets are going to be down, correct? Jets are going to be down, and like we said earlier, I was talking about Brandon Marshall, they have to throw the football. So Forte and Paolo both good pass receiving backs of the backfield. They're going to catch balls, and then this league, point per perception. I mean, they're very valuable. We're not going to look to try to add them personally, but I mean, I think they're going to have value. We'll see how it works out. If they get Forte more of the work, or Powell. Powell doesn't pop for me. He does nothing for me. Forte's smooth, but he's old. But they're going to catch balls in the backfield because the Jets are going to be down, so there is value to be had there.
Yeah, definitely value to be had when you are talking about those guys catching passes out of the backfield when they're trailing. We saw Paul just crush it with that at the end of the season. So I think more of the same can be expected. But we'll see what the Jets do in the draft. It's going to all hinge upon that. Erik, I'm going to let you take this last question. I know we got to get to a break here, Rob's telling me, but we're going to get to a break shortly. I want you to give us a guy that you think is going to be a dynasty bust in this year's rookie class, a guy that you guys will be staying away from in your rookie draft, and then a guy that maybe is under the radar right now, a guy that is going to be a difference maker, maybe not this year, but in his NFL career at some point, he is going to be very fantasy relevant that not a lot of people are talking about. So both ends of the spectrum here, Erik, a dynasty bust and a dynasty sleeper.
All right, so my dynasty bust is going to be Mike Williams from Clemson. Now, I know it sounds crazy because he's highly rated, but there's a curse that goes with this name. No Mike Williams has ever been good in the NFL. I've watched this dude for the last 3 years. And to be honest, I mean, I know Clemson just won a national championship, but he doesn't wow me on the field. I don't think he's going to be really all that good in this level. I don't think he's going to be terrible. I don't think he's going to be a top 2 or 3 wide receiver. And I would say a rookie to look out for who might not make an impact this year, but 2-3 years down the road is this kid who plays for Florida International. His name is Juju Smith. He's a tight end. He's had a little bit of off-field issues, but his game tape is absolutely phenomenal. And if he can get on a good team, he will be a difference maker down the road. And
definitely playing the tight end position too in the FFPC. These are the guys that you want to take a look at. Dave and I have talked in, we played private dynasty leagues together. This is non-FFPC scoring, but we always said, and I can't remember what owner he was talking about with this, but he said the guy was always good at tight end because he was always able to keep, a stud top 5, top 6 guy on his roster, a decent backup that could fill in, if injury struck or, bye week or whatever. That guy was usually, finished between 10 and 15. And then he'd always have like some sort of tight end sleeper that, had a lot of talent, just needed the NFL seasoning, just needed the opportunity. And it was usually just this constant cycle of that third tight end eventually becoming his number 1. The guy was always dominant at tight end. So I think that's a good name to pay attention to. And Dave also, I know, is totally with you on Mike Williams, a guy that he thinks is going to be a bust. I know he has talked about him not being very, he's not very excited about him. I brought this up a couple of weeks ago, but Bill Polian from ESPN said that, everybody talks about Mike Williams is so great at catching the ball in a crowd. Well, the reason he's so good at catching the ball in the crowd is he's always in a crowd because he doesn't have the speed to break away from these defenders. So, and I think that's something to be wary of. When it comes to the NFL for sure. So, okay, great stuff there. I appreciate it, guys. We're going to have much more with you coming up in just a minute. This is Nick Stacey and Erik Osteen along with Erik Balkman on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour at the 1250 Dynasty 13 FFPC Champs. Coming at you, talking about news and notes around the NFL. This is the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. Our final show of the month of March 2017. Erik Balkman here on the HSFF Hour. The next show we do will be draft month. We are getting closer and closer, and who better to have sitting in for the Dizzle tonight, Nick Stacey and Erik Osteen, the 1250 Dynasty number 13 champions in the FFPC this past year. Let's get into some news and notes here. I want to thank Roto World and, of course, Rob for tonight's rundown. Kicking things off, let's talk about D'Onta Foreman's pro day at Texas. Now, Foreman is a 234-pound, 6'1" running back from Texas. 33-inch vertical was his measurement at his pro day. He ran a 4.45 40 at his pro day. Now, again, these pro day times, you can kind of, fudge them a little bit. So typically, the combine is the much better measurement to run by or go by for these guys. But remember, you can't really Foreman he was not medically cleared by doctors to run the 40 at the combine. So this is all we have to go on. But it is an incredible time for a man of his size. Speed score of 119. Leonard Fournette's was 116. So you look at Foreman, a guy that has not been talked about as a top 3 running back in this class. I think that this is a guy that we need to be talking about, Erik. Are we underrating him? Should he be considered along with those top 3 running backs as maybe a potential first day selection? I know he's his pass catching is sort of unproven. He did not. I think he caught 7 passes in his career at Texas, so it's not that. So then you have that to deal with. But you look at Foreman. Are we underrating him as far as dynasty goes?
I totally think he's being underrated. I actually have him ranked higher than both Cook and McCaffrey at this point. I think he is really dynamic with the ball in his hands. He's tough to take down. Those measurables at his pro day, I mean, I'm not surprised by that. And like you said, I mean, he doesn't catch the ball. 7 grabs, that's not good. But, I mean, in today's NFL, they're kind of going back more towards the run a little bit, and he's a perfect running back for the first 2 downs. I like Foreman a lot. I think he's going to be phenomenal in the next level.
Yeah, he's the type of guy, too, that, we talked about Fournette to Carolina. He's the type of guy that if Carolina decides to go defense, maybe they get some help in the secondary with their first pick. Maybe they go Foreman in the second round and sort of fill both those spots with the first 2 picks. And Foreman, I think you'd agree he's no Fournette, but it sounds like he's number 2 on your running back list. I mean, that would be a good landing spot for him as well.
Oh, no, definitely. I mean, I think if they don't get Fournette and they could get Foreman in the second round, they would be just as happy. I totally agree.
Nick, let's talk about Terrence West because John Harbaugh said that he is the lead running back for the Ravens. Now, this is coming after Kenneth Dixon being suspended for the first 4 games for violating the NFL's substance abuse policy. West is going to have to compete with Dixon, I'm sure, after Dixon returns from suspension. But you look at what this means for fantasy for 2017. Maybe Baltimore brings somebody in. Maybe they draft somebody in the first 2 rounds. Are you a believer in Terrence West? Should this signal bad news for Kenneth Dixon and maybe bring about a pretty good chance that Baltimore does draft a running back early this season?
Who are we talking about?
Terrence West, Baltimore Ravens.
Exactly. What's that term they use? Jag, just a guy. I mean, he's blue collar. He runs hard. I feel like Terrence West gets talked about too much. I mean, he's okay. He doesn't move the needle for us. You kind of let me down. You didn't even include Danny Woodhead in this.
Woodhead's another guy too that is going to be crucial in that Baltimore running game. But I think no matter what they do at running back, I think Woodhead. We know what role Woodhead's going to serve. I mean, he's going to be that pass catching, third down guy. I don't even think if they bring in, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't even think if they bring in a guy in round 1 or round 2 of the draft, I don't think that necessarily changes Woodhead's role all that much.
No, definitely not.
Not at all. I think Woodhead's gonna be the top producer in fantasy wise on that roster. I don't see them drafting a guy in the first couple of days. Dixon's talented. He's versatile. He can catch the balls in the backfield. I love John Harbaugh talking it up. It's beautiful. But we all know Woodhead's the best running back on the roster. The kid was born to play football.
It definitely was. He's a guy that I've always enjoyed. I own him in one of my dynasty rosters, and certainly enjoyed the production there. Let's get back to the rookies here, Erik. Chris Godwin. This is a guy I've kind of warmed up to over the last few weeks from Penn State. He is scheduled to meet with the Buccaneers this coming month in April, amongst other teams. Godwin. He's only I think 6'1", but he did have 11 touchdowns in this past season with Penn State. Should be a second round pick in the NFL draft. But Erik, in reality, how close is Godwin to the top two receivers in this draft, Mike Williams and Corey Davis? I know you're not a fan of Williams. How close is Godwin as far as talent goes to those two guys?
I mean, I think Godwin is just as talented as both those two, and you know how I feel about Williams. I mean, I do think Corey Davis is going to be really nice in the next level, but I mean, I think he's just as good as Davis, and he's been working out exclusively with Megatron lately, so he's getting a lot of advice from a future Hall of Famer. I mean, he's taking it seriously, and I mean, I don't think he'll be drafted in the first round, but I mean, definitely, I think he could put up like Michael Thomas type numbers being the second round draft pick this upcoming season. I'm really convinced with this kid also.
It's probably the Penn State thing that has me thinking, because he's not as big as Allen Robinson is, but I feel like I look at him and I'm just reminded of what Robinson was able to do, being a second rounder from Penn State, coming into a situation where he was able to perform right away and put up good numbers his second year in the league as well. So I don't know. Maybe it's just the Penn State thing, but that's at the forefront of my mind when I think about Godwin. He's a guy that you could probably get in the early. I mean, we'll see where he ends up. But right now, the guys, of course, our friends over at Dynasty League Football did a mock rookie dynasty draft, and I think Godwin was going at the end of the first, early second round. So a guy that maybe you guys will have a good shot at in your rookie draft, Erik, for sure. Let's move on and talk about one of the most polarizing guys in the draft, and that's Oklahoma running back Joe Mixon. On this past Monday, he visited with the Oakland Raiders, according to a source. Mixon has already visited with the Denver Broncos, with the Cincinnati Bengals, a guy who some people have called the best running back in the draft, a guy who many people have said should be going in the first round, but obviously we know what happened with the domestic violence going back 3 years ago. Has some teams eliminating him from their draft boards entirely. Mixon was not allowed at the scouting combine due to that new rule that the NFL Combine had this year about having these past violations on your record, or at least accusations. So anybody who's interested in Mixon had scheduled him for a private workout. You look at Mixon and what he's going to mean for fantasy. How good of a chance does he have, Erik, of having the best fantasy season for any rookie running back this coming year?
So earlier when I said that Cook and McCaffrey are not even in my top three, I actually had Mixon ranked number 1, Fournette 2, and Foreman 3. I am really big on Mixon. I think he is like Edgerrin James 2.0, a little stronger, a little quicker, great out of the backfield, catching the ball, explosive on his first step. I mean, I am a big fan of Mixon, but obviously when you're going Ike Turner on some girl and it's on tape, you just can't. It's unexcusable. Teams are going to have a hard time taking a chance on him just because of what happened with Ray Rice 3 years ago. So if he can get the right people around him, the right PR around him, I mean, I think the kid could do great things on the next level, but that's a big if. I'm willing to draft him and take a chance on him in the Dynasty League, but, I mean, it just depends on if he can stay out of trouble or not.
Yeah, and I think that he, you look at Mixon, he's the type of guy that he's kept his nose clean ever since this incident. You haven't heard anything bad about him. Not that I'm condoning it. I would never condone anything like that, but he was,
right.
18, 19 years old. I mean, I know I did stupid stuff back then. Face it, I still do stupid stuff now, but he's the guy, he's kept his nose clean since then. And I think that it's the proof is really going to be where a team takes him. If he goes in the first or
Right.
second round, yeah, I think he's going to have an impact right away. If he slips down further than that, which at this point I don't think he will, because I think these NFL teams are going to be playing a game of chicken with themselves to see who's going to let Mixon drop, and whoever grabs him is going to get a good value. So Mixon is going to be a polarizing guy come draft day, but I think we in the fantasy community have made up our minds that this guy, when he's on the field, will produce. O.J. Howard has a visit scheduled with the Tennessee Titans, the Alabama tight end. Titans already have, obviously, Delaney Walker as their number one tight end, but adding Howard would definitely give defenses problems, having to contend with both of those guys. The Titans pick 5th, and they pick 18th in the first round of the draft as well. Howard, widely considered as the best tight end in this best ever quote-unquote draft class. Taking him with the 5th overall pick would be kind of a stretch, but it would obviously be better if they could get him at 18. So Tennessee certainly an interesting landing spot. But when we talk about O.J. Howard, when we talk about the rest of these tight ends, Erik, the whole top end of this rookie class, what's your thoughts on the tight end class this season? Is this the best class ever? And we touched on this earlier, could we see 3 tight ends going in rookie dynasty drafts with the FFPC?
I mean, I honestly think this is probably the best tight end class probably ever. And I do think we could see 3, maybe even 4 tight ends go if people start doing their homework a little bit. I mean, O.J. Howard, he's a stud. He reminds me a lot of Tony Gonzalez out there. And if he does land at number 18, that would be great for Tennessee. I mean, I agree with you. Number 5's a little bit of a stretch. You better be Gronk if you're going to get drafted like 5th overall, even not knowing the injury history that's going to happen after. But you better be Gronk if you're going to get drafted that high. And, I think there's a lot of great tight ends. Njoku is really good. Ingram is really good. I mean, there's a lot of solid guys out there. But from Michigan, it's unfortunate he blew his knee out. But, I mean, he might have been the most pro-ready pass-catching tight end before he got hurt. So, I mean, there's a lot of great talent out there. And it might take a year or 2 for some of these guys to develop, but there is a lot of talent out there this season.
Yeah, I know Jake Butt was a guy that as we entered, after the NFL draft ends the previous year, Mel Kiper, Todd McShay, and all these guys always come out with their first-round mock for the following year, and I know Jake Butt was the number one tight end that they had for this coming year, and obviously was unfortunate that he had that ACL injury. And then, guys you didn't even mention, I think his name's Gerald Everett, the guy from South Alabama. He was a guy that some people, I think Daniel Jeremiah said he could sneak in to the first round. And then you have Bucky Hodges as well. So, I mean, there's all these guys. It's just going to be crazy. And it could be really insane what people could do in FFPC Dynasty when it comes to, stockpiling these guys and really having a juggernaut at tight end in the next couple of years. Final thing I want to get to before we get to our final break, let's talk about John Ross here, Erik. He has a visit scheduled with the Cleveland Browns. Ross, of course, broke the 40-yard dash record at the NFL Combine, going for a 4.22 measurement this past year. So obviously the fastest guy there, the fastest guy in Combine history. The Browns are picking 1st overall and 12th in the first round. They might consider John Ross near the middle of the first round. And he's a guy that not only is a burner, but he's shown that he can be a wide receiver in Washington. But, Erik, can he do that in the NFL? Can he be a difference maker right away his rookie season?
I mean, I definitely think Ross could have a huge impact. I don't know how many catches he's going to catch. I don't know if he's going to be a high-volume guy when it comes to the receptions. But, I mean, if he's anything like Deshaun Jackson was his first, 2 or 3 years in the league, I mean, you have to honor him going down the field. That'll just open everything else up for the offense. I definitely think this kid could be really, really special on the next level.
I feel like there's just not enough. We don't have enough show to talk about all these rookies, and we don't have enough show enough shows until the NFL draft to really give the proper all the proper wording and spend enough time on all these guys, because it is going to be an exciting rookie draft. It's going to be an exciting NFL draft, and I can't wait for it. And I know you guys are desperately awaiting to see where these guys will start their NFL careers as well. We are going to take our final break, ladies and gentlemen. When we come back, we're going to have more with Nick Stacey, more with Erik Osteen, the 1250 number 13 FFPC Dynasty Chance, answering your tweets, answering your emails, and much more. The HSFF Hour on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. Coming into the final segment of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour tonight, I'm Eric Balkman. My normal co-host, Dave Gerzak, is off this week, but we do have Nick Stacey and Erik Osteen filling in the 1250 number 13 FFPC Dynasty Champs from this past season. Let's get to some tweets and emails.
Got a question for Erik, Dave, or tonight's guest? Send them a tweet at HSFF Hour on Twitter. Email the show at highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. Post it in the chat room during the broadcast. Hashtag your tweet with HSFF, or just smack Erik in the head. That's highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com or at HSFF Hour on Twitter.
Nick, let's toss this one to you right away. First up, we have a tweet. This is from @Bay-Area-Viper on Twitter. Bay Area Viper, the notorious BAV. He has a question. Should Gronk be taken in the early to mid-second round, or is he worth the risk of taking around the round 1-2 turn? So, Nick, we talked about Gronk earlier and what you guys were willing to pony up for him in Dynasty and what he eventually went for in Dynasty. And I feel like I already know your answer, but this is a guy that was, sometimes the number one overall pick in FFPC drafts, redrafts, not necessarily Dynasty. But he was a guy that really went up there, and I think this year he's fallen off. So I wish I had the ADP in front of me, but I don't. He's fallen off towards the end of the first, early second round. Would you guys consider taking him there, or would he have to slip a little bit even further, maybe into that mid to late second round, for you guys to look at him from a redraft aspect, non-Dynasty? What are your thoughts, Nick?
Third round. First 2 rounds, you can lose your league in the first 2 rounds. Third round, if he's there, he can win you your league. But if he gets injured like he does, and he's just second round pick, good luck.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the decision that a lot of people have to make is am I going to take a risk on a guy who, when he's healthy, when he's good, can be the number one overall player in tight end premium scoring leagues, or am I going to go a little bit safer? And I think most people will go to safer choices there because, you can still get dominant players in the first 2 rounds that don't have the injury history that Gronk does. But it's certainly something worth watching to see how he's healing when he starts getting back on the practice field. Again, New England this year is going to be a fascinating team to pay attention to in the off season. Nick, let's keep it with you. John in Holland, New York, writes, Dear Balky and Nick, taking into account what it would take to acquire both these guys in an FFPC Dynasty League, which Redskin would you rather try and trade for, Jamison Crowder or Jordan Reed? Thanks, guys. That's John in Holland, New York. John, thanks for the email. Nick, I can't remember, looking at roster, I couldn't remember if you guys have either of these guys. I don't think you do, but I could be wrong. But if you're going to try to acquire them, which one would you try to rather acquire, Jamison Crowder or Jordan Reed right now?
My heart wants to say Jamison Crowder. I'm a little guy. I'm 5'10", $150 when I'm wet. And I love what that kid does. So, yeah, I love what that kid does in Washington. And Kirk Cousins loves him. And with Deshaun Jackson leaving and Pierre Garçon getting paid too much money, I mean, he's a pro. But
good call.
Crowder, though, he's going to have a nice year. But in this format,
got to take Reed.
1.5 points per catch for tight end. Jordan Reed's a stud when he's healthy. He's injury prone, but when he's healthy, he's a roster advantage. So I want to say Crowder. But I think you got to go Jordan Reed. Go try to go get that kid because that could be a difference maker for you.
And I know it was only a 1-year deal, but Washington did go out and sign Terrell Pryor, so it's not like they just let Deshaun Jackson and Pierre Garçon go and just have Jamison Crowder take up all the heavy lifting. Remember, Josh Doctson is coming back or we hope he's coming back at least off that Achilles injury. So there will be targets to contend with Crowder, and I feel like Reed doesn't necessarily have his role change as much as maybe Crowder's does this year. Next one, Steve in Westchester, PA. This is, hello, Erik and the champ. I've wiped my glasses off several times, but no matter how hard I squint, I can't tell who the Bears receiver is to own in 2017. Any help? That is Steve in Westchester, Pennsylvania. Thank you for the email, Steve. Erik, let's throw this one to you. Your thoughts on who you think the number one receiver, fantasy-wise, will be at the end of the season in Chicago?
I mean, I'd have to say it's White at this point, even though he hasn't really been healthy and hasn't really shown much, but they don't really have much on their roster. And I know Howard's not a wide receiver, but I mean, he might lead that team in catches because he's like really their only legit weapon they have at this point. But I mean, I would definitely go White. I would definitely say he's probably the guy, and unless they draft someone like Godwin in the second round, which could definitely happen, it would have to be White as of right now, who's on the roster, I would think.
This is where you go fisticuffs, Erik Bachman. This is where you go fisticuffs with co-owners, because how in the world do you say Kevin White when the guy can't even stay healthy?
It's the only good wide receiver they have right now.
Nick, who is it for you? Is it Cam Meredith, or who is it there that you think is going to be the number one receiver?
I'm not excited to say either any Bear right now. I like Zach Miller's blue collar, but for wide receiver wise, I'm not excited for anyone because Kevin White's talented, but I was reading last year from the mental side of the game, like they can only give him limited routes because he just can't learn the playbook and he can't stay healthy. So I mean, I'll say Cam Meredith just because of those reasons.
Yeah, it's a situation definitely I don't think any one of us is really excited for this year. It's going to be tough to put our finger on that situation as far as the number one Bear receiver goes. Moving on to Brian in Athens, Texas. If you needed a running back right now in Dynasty and you didn't pick until the 111, what would you part with for Adrian Peterson, TIA? Thank you, Brian in Athens, Texas. Nick, I'll let you take this. I mean, you guys are picking at the 112, but you don't really need a running back. I mean, with Jordan Howard, Ezekiel Elliott leading the way for you guys, you're good. But if you needed a running back and you didn't pick until the 111, are you hoping that, one of those top five guys, be it, Cook, McCaffrey, Fournette, Foreman, Mixon, are you hoping one of those guys get there and you'll just bank on him for the rookie year? Or maybe are you trying to deal a pick to try to get Adrian Peterson? Are you trying to deal from a point of strength in your roster to get to Peterson, or are you just avoiding Peterson altogether?
We're not avoiding him. We're a very open-minded franchise. We're not going to have one of those top running backs because we're at the 12th pick. But we're open-minded. Like you said earlier, like it's all about situation and opportunity. Talent might even be the third thing. I mean, it's really all about I value opportunity over more than anything. So we got to wait and see where he goes. I'm hearing some talk about the Raiders. I might like that with the Raiders. Derek Carr gets up and down the field. We got Derek Carr as our franchise dynasty quarterback. They're going to be in the red zone a lot. If he lands in a place like that, where they're going to be in the red zone a lot, I feel like 10-plus touchdowns. I don't really care if he's catching balls in the backfield. I'll look at, we'll talk about a third or a fourth rounder, but we probably wouldn't go more than that just because he's probably a one and done, maybe two at the most. We'd go up to like a third rounder. We wouldn't go much more than that, but I think he can still have a good season here.
Yeah, the last time everybody wrote off Adrian Peterson, he rushed for 2,000 yards. So there's potential there. I'm going to let Erik, you handle this next one because we heard Nick talk about the Jets before. This is from Matt in Gardena, California. He writes, it seems like the Jets are going to get worse before they get better, and Eric Decker is still healing. Is the time to deal him in Dynasty now before everyone realizes his body is still recovering and the offense is going to stink? That is Matt in Gardena, California. Erik, if you had Eric Decker right now, are you trying to see what you can get for him?
Yeah, I would definitely try to get rid of Decker right now. I mean, I don't know. He's just been injury prone, and the Jets are just a hot mess right now. So I would definitely just try to get rid of him. I don't even want that dude on my roster. That's just me, though.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't think I've ever owned Decker in Dynasty. I think I owned him in redraft 1 year. Just for whatever reason, he's just never been a guy I've been too excited about. And he's had some pretty good years. But I don't think 2017 is going to be one of those pretty good years. Just get a sneaking suspicion. Nick, this is big news. I feel bad we're not touching on this until a couple of minutes left in the show, but this is from Frank in Mineola, New York. He writes, "Hello, Gus and Mike. Marty Bryant looks like he is going to get reinstated any day now. Should I try and trade for him, or should I save myself the headaches of seeing Antonio Brown catching 10 balls every week and hoping Bryant doesn't get popped for pot again? Keep up the good work." That is Frank in Mineola, New York. So Martavis Bryant has not been officially reinstated yet. There's been multiple reports saying that it's going to happen either this week or next. What are your thoughts on trying to acquire Martavis Bryant in Dynasty right now? Is he the type of guy that you'd be willing to give up a significant amount because you think he can be that baller, top 10, top 15 wide receiver? Or does, the possible, permanent suspension, linger in your mind? Is the possibility that Antonio Brown, fresh off his extension, is still going to be the man there going forward? What are your thoughts on trading for Martavis Bryant in Dynasty?
We're hitting the brakes hard right now because Roethlisberger is talking like he doesn't know, he wants to retire tomorrow or something. But Martavis Bryant is a stud. I say go get him. Go get him in redraft, definitely. Dynasty, be cautious. I mean, Big Ben was talking about retiring this offseason. You don't know what the quarterback situation would be in the future if he decides to do that. But I've heard really good things. I heard he stayed clean. I heard he's volunteering. He's a volunteer high school football coach today. I mean, I heard some really good things about him. I say go get him if you can get him at the right price. He's a stud, and he's young. I think he's a special talent, and if Ben's the quarterback, he's going to be a monster.
Erik, I'll let you chime in on this too. I'll tell you right now, I own Martavis Bryant. I actually picked him up at the start of last year from the owner in one of my leagues because in that league we don't have we have IR spots, but because he's suspended, he wasn't eligible to go in that IR spot. And I kind of convinced this owner, I'm like, look, he's going to be dead weight on your roster all year. Just trade him to me right now. So I traded a second round pick and I got Martavis Bryant, and now I'm kind of trying to flip them to see what I can get, and there's actually been some action on there. I haven't found a deal I liked yet. But I also, in addition to the high school, coaching high school thing, I also heard he put on 25 pounds of muscle. I mean, that is a lot of muscle to be putting on. So, he could be rocked up when he shows up in camp. Erik, do you agree with Nick that this is a guy that people should at least be floating an offer out to see if you can snag him?
No, I totally agree. In rental leagues, that's what I call the 1 year ESPN Yahoo leagues. In rental leagues, I think that's someone you want to draft in the first 2, 3, or 4 rounds or whatever. But again, he's had his off-field issues. But if you own him, I'd keep him, and if you can deal him and get something nice for him, I would definitely do that.
I think that's what I'm going to do. And it wouldn't be the worst idea in the world just to hang on to Bryant. Nope. Maybe he has, he goes for 6 for 150 and 2 touchdowns week 1, and then maybe that's the time okay, his value is not going to be higher. If I'm going to trade him, this is going to be the time to see what I can get. So, so hold on Martavis Bryant if you own him. Final email tonight we have Dale in Livonia, Michigan. Greetings and salutations. I know Minnesota wants Treadwell to be a big part of their offense, but after the Vikes extended Thielen, should we just assume he is here to stay as the number 2 wideout behind Diggs? Thank you for the email, Dale. Erik, your thoughts on Adam Thielen? Is he the number 2 guy now behind Diggs? Is Treadwell sort of an afterthought?
I totally think that Thielen is the number 2. I was never high on Treadwell last season when he got drafted. And, Thielen, he's a gamer. He goes out there, plays hard. He gets those grabs. I think he was really impressive second half of the season when Bradford was really starting to feel good in that offense. He doesn't get a lot of touchdowns, but he will get grabs. He will get you some yards. I definitely like this kid a lot.
Gentlemen, I appreciate your time. It's flown by here. Whatever we did, the better part of an hour and a half, it has gone by like that. I learned a lot. I certainly appreciate you guys taking some time out on Thursday night. Glad that you did not miss any college basketball to hang out with me and chat about some Dynasty Fantasy Football. Congrats on the 1250 number 13 win. Very impressive stuff to do that in your first year. Best of luck to you repeating. You got a trio of rookies and a good stable of veterans behind them to do it. And you got a first-round pick coming up. So that guy should be a key contributor for you this year as well. Best of luck to you. Let's talk again soon. I certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot for coming on the show, guys.
All right. Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you.
Bye.
Nick, Stacey, Erik, Osteen, 1250 FFPC Dynasty Champs, number 13 league last year. Awesome to have them on. Really an awesome show. I mean, I had a lot of good times here running the show without Dave, as I always love doing. I want to thank Nick, Stacey, Erik, Osteen, the FFPC, Rob, Bryce, and of course all of you for hanging out on a special Thursday show. Dave does return next week. It is our big Season 5 finale. You know what that means. We total up the I Got 5 on it board. And I'll tell you this, spoiler alert, it was decided by one bet. So it's going to come right down to it. We'll do that all next week on Friday. Sign up for the Football Guys Players Championship and the main event today. Check out all the Dynasty startups, all the Dynasty orphans that we have out there, and, of course, all the satellites, DEs, and much more at myffpc.com. Scott Engel and the HOF Hour is up next. Your weekend officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com that was broadcast live and heard around the world. Erik and Dave will be back next week with more analysis, interviews, and advice from a guest much smarter than they are. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk with you again next week.
I gotta go cause I got me a drop top, and if I hit the switch, I can make the ass drop. Had to stop at a red light, looking in my mirror, not a jacker in sight, and everything is...
By the way, in referencing that Martavis Bryant trade discussion that I've been having, it's been with one guy in one league, at 2Packer on Twitter. Tell him he's crazy for rejecting some of these trades and for offering me some of the direct he has. That's at 2Packer. Do better, and Martavis Bryant could be yours. Talk to everybody next week.